You're listening to the Gerardi Performance Podcast, hosted by Michelangelo Gerardi. This is the #1 fitness and lifestyle podcast to help you achieve your dream body and bulletproof mindset to live your best life, both physically and mentally. Enjoy the show.
The difference in low intensity cardio versus the more high intensity HIIT kind of stuff, the differences between those. You have your steady state cardio, or we call it LISS, so low intensity steady state cardio. And then you have your HIIT cardio, right, which is what I have you doing at the end, where you're doing like a bunch of different exercises that really jack up your heart rate. Recommendation for that, now, if this is just if you're going to exercise and not do anything else, is to do 150 minutes of the low intensity cardio per week, or 75 minutes of the more vigorous high intensity cardio. That doesn't really apply to you per se, but just kind of general guidelines, that's what they recommend. Now, in terms of fat loss, it's a little bit different than burning calories. So weight loss and fat loss are two different things. You could lose weight, but also not lose fat at the same time. Does that make sense?
How's it possible though?
Right, so think of someone who is bedridden, right? They're not using any of their muscles. They're not using any kind of strength to have to get up, legs. They're not having to pull doors open with their back muscles. They don't have to lift anything. Someone who's just bedridden, let's say very sick in the hospital, right? They're going to lose weight, but can you guess the kind of weight that they're losing?
Muscle.
There you go, right? Because they're not using any of the muscles. So I always say, I'll have people come to me, hey, I want to lose 50 pounds. Awesome, great goal, super excited for you. Now let me ask, if we could lose 20 pounds of fat and have you look how you want to look, does that 50 pounds still matter? Oftentimes they're like, no, it's not really about the number, that's just what I think I'll look good at. And so what I'm really trying to hone in is fat loss versus weight loss. Weight loss is important, yes, you don't want to be obviously overweight, but for those people that are like 110 pounds, like soaking wet, super skinny, but they're not toned, you can't really see muscle definition, I would focus on fat loss for those people and not the weight loss, because the weight loss is just general, like, hey, I just need to lose weight by any means necessary. So fat loss is really what we want in order to get that kind of shredded physique. So for fat loss, you want to do that low intensity cardio. And the reason for that being is because carbohydrates, your rice, your sweet potatoes, all that kind of stuff are like quick energy sources. So when you have carbohydrates, those are the first to burn when you exercise. The higher intensity it is, the more those carbs are going to just keep burning. Versus lower intensity, fats are also a store of energy, but they just release slower. They don't release as readily as carbohydrates. So if we're doing low intensity exercise, like walking on a treadmill, going on a hike, riding a bike, just kind of at your own leisure, that's going to burn more of those fat calories. And so, right, those little cells, those fat cells, fat loss. Versus if you go to the more high intensity, the HIIT cardio, stuff like that, that's going to burn those carbohydrates. You're going to lose weight because as you burn less carbs, you're going to have less water weight, and you're just going to keep losing weight, which is totally fine. Quick interruption here, guys. If you're enjoying the podcast so far, please go give me a 5-star rating on Apple Music or Spotify. I don't put any ads in this episode. All I ask is that you go help me out, go tell a friend, and let's keep going. So fat loss, low intensity. High intensity cardio is going to be more burning calories. So if you can imagine this, I know it's kind of hard to wrap around, but you will burn more calories doing high intensity cardio for the amount of time that you would do the low intensity. So for example, if you were to do 20 minutes of low intensity cardio versus 20 minutes of high intensity cardio, obviously going to burn more calories in the high intensity, right? So low intensity is more time consuming, still works, but if you want that quick hit, like if you have somewhere to go really quick and you just want to go ahead and get a quick workout in, burn some calories, get your heart rate up, then you want the HIIT cardio. Now that obviously all depends on people's kind of aerobic fitness level as well, because doing a hike may be some high intensity for someone who's like 400 pounds. And so it's all relative, but that's kind of the general idea. So HIIT, less time consuming, more calories burned per minute spent working out. The lower intensity is going to be more time consuming, but you're burning more fat, less calories per time kind of exercising. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually didn't know that about that principle you just talked about. It's good to know how basically you're telling me that for high intensity workout, it's better for losing calories, and for low intensity, it's better for losing fat. In summary.
In theory, right now, I'm not saying that you're not gonna. Does doing high intensity cardio help with fat loss? Absolutely. Does low intensity cardio help with fat loss? Like we've just said, yes. It's not so black and white, but if you really wanted to focus on, hey, I just want to lose fat, I don't want to lose any weight, or I want to lose less weight, but I want to lose as much fat as possible, you want to go with the LISS, or the low intensity steady state cardio, they call it.
Yeah.
If your goal is I just need to drop X amount of pounds, no matter how it is, because I have a competition that I need to be 130 pounds for, it's a weight class, then you just drop weight as much as you can. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not like black and white, both have their place, but if you wanted to focus in on one thing, those are kind of the two avenues that you'd want to go down. Now, I'll give you a little kind of test here, what's a great way to know if you're exerting yourself to call it high intensity versus if you're not exerting yourself, so you call it steady state? Do you know kind of the little test you can do?
Is it the heartbeat, like measuring your heartbeat to see how intense that is?
Yep, that is one. So, right, if when my clients come into me in person, they'll do a little test that I have them do for endurance, and I'll check their pulse at their wrist, and how fast their heart is beating is how hard they kind of exerted themselves. It's one of the telltale signs. But for someone who has no idea how to take a pulse, no idea how many beats that it should be, any other idea?
Breathing. How fast they're breathing?
On the right track, yep. Breathing. So another thing that you could kind of go on as okay, I'm working hard or I'm not working hard enough if you're trying to do the high intensity, right? So you should not be able to hold a conversation to the person next to you if you're working hard enough, right? So right? And it's like someone's trying to talk to you. It's like, all right, shut up. Let me catch my breath for a second, and then we can talk, right? So that's like a great telltale sign to say, okay, this is really high intensity for me. My heart rate is jacked up. I can't really hold a conversation, and it's really difficult for me to talk. Versus if we throw a treadmill on 3 miles per hour, you and I could talk for the next 2 hours doing that, no problem. We're still doing cardio, but it's not high intensity, and it's very easy or comfortable for us to hold a conversation. Does that make sense? Can you kind of relate to that?
Yeah.
Cool, man. So that's kind of the two differences there. Now, kind of someone like you, right? You want to lose fat. You're kind of phasing the program right now as we just bulked, got you all that weight, and now we want to start to lose the fat, right? We want to incorporate some of that cardio, which you said, right? When sports start in the spring, you're going to be doing that cardio, right? Just running up and down the field, up and down the field. So that is kind of where I am looking forward with you, is that once we start doing that kind of lower intensity there, you're really going to start to see the shredding come after a bulk like we just had. That's the end of the show, guys. Again, if you got some value out of this, please give me a 5-star rating on whichever platform you're listening to. But until next time, I'll see you later.